I'm Dan, and this is 10,000 Hours of Indie, a podcast exploring new music and delving deeper into what goes on in the background of the independent music industry. I'm a musician and passionate music lover, and I wanted to delve deeper into new music in the independent scene around the world. I also saw this as a chance to help artists connect and share their stories, so if there's someone you hear and you want to find out more about, every podcast has links in the show description. Get involved, help this community grow, follow on the 10,000 Hours of Indie socials, you can find all the links in the show description. And also feel free to email me about anything music related, 10,000indie@gmail.com. I'm open to any ideas and love listening to your promos. Boy Grapes is the musical alias of Sean Grapin, a singer-songwriter and multi-instrumentalist from Washington, D.C. in the US. Having released 3 albums and 2 EPs in 5 years, the musical evolution of Boy Grapes from phone recordings via an Apple earbud mic to the latest effort in just 7 years is nothing short of magnificent. The latest album, When I Close My Eyes, was self-released via Boy Boys on August the 9th, and morphs from Frank Zappa stylings via Beastie Boys to many other weird and wonderful cross-genre influences. Hi, Sean. Thanks for joining me on the podcast.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. Great introduction. Wow.
You say on your website that you picked up a bass at the age of 14 after seeing a band play at your school, but you also say there wasn't much musical influence in your life growing up. So was that your first sort of proper exposure to live music and sort of musical culture?
Yeah, it was. Back to growing up, I have 2 pretty normal parents. Like my dad was in the army and my mom is a pharmacist. So we listened to just whatever was on the radio growing up. Even now, my parents don't have a music subscription anywhere. They don't care to listen to much music. So when I was in high school at 14 and I saw my first rock show with some of my classmates, it just blew me away. And I thought, I really gotta be in a band. And I figured the easiest way to do that was to pick up the bass. And so I did that, and I was practicing, and I never ended up joining a band, but it just evolved from there. I ended up picking up drums, then I picked up guitar, then I started writing my own songs. And so I never even ended up joining a band, but the music thing just kind of found me at that point, and it just totally devolved from there.
So what do you listen to in your sort of spare time? What do you enjoy?
I don't want to say I listen to everything because that's such a cop-out answer, but I really like to expose myself to as much music as I possibly can. The music that I make is really reminiscent of what I was listening to in high school when I started making music. So like Pixies, Radiohead, David Bowie. But around that time as a teenager, rap was inescapable, and it was at its peak with like Kendrick Lamar and Earl Sweatshirt, Kanye back before he was crazy. Well, he was kind of crazy, but I listened to everything under the sun. And when I went to college at Berklee College of Music, then I was just constantly exposed to jazz. And so I was able to find like what jazz I did and didn't like. Lately, I've been listening to a lot more heavier stuff. So a lot of the sounds, like Bobby on the latest album, was very abrasive, had a bunch of drum machines. It was kind of a new direction. And that was me listening to Skinny Puppy. Lately, I've been getting into 3-6, Mafia, and Bone Thugs, and seeing where all this modern rap songs came from. And those songs hold up really well today. And the other new thing I've been on is Ween, because I didn't even discover them until I was out of college. And it aligns, it's so like uniquely American. And they come at you from so many different directions, but overall it's so like undeniably them. It's because they handle so much of the stuff themselves. And I feel like that's something I kind of resonate with. I come with so many different styles and try to do so many different things, but because it's all just me, it ends up sounding like a Boy Grapes sound. Like I don't even have to try for that. And I've been listening to a lot of metal recently, like Gojira. So like I said, I'll try to expose myself to everything. And even nowadays, it's not even stuff that will sound like my music. Any song that I really like, I'll take little things from here and there and they just seep their way into my subconscious.
So you're very open about your struggle with mental health as you approached 20, which was a few years ago now. Have you now found a way to channel that into your music?
What's funny is I feel like anytime I go through something pretty bad or something that's like really affected me, it takes a few months of like just processing and learning and writing and finding the right way to express it for me to actually get it out there. I spent my 20th birthday in the mental hospital after a suicide attempt, and I wrote a whole bunch of songs about that. And that ended up being recorded and made and released about a year after that. Same thing with like a bunch of songs about my breakup. And I'm doing a lot better now, but I'm 23 years old. You're a young adult. Not everything is peachy. There's a bunch of stuff to figure out. And so when I write songs now, I kind of find myself writing about the things that I've already processed then. It's almost like you're looking in the rear view mirror a little bit. You're seeing what squares of the Rubik's Cube you have put together and that you can make sense of. That's where I'm at. If I'm affected by something and I have to write about it, I really have to sit with it and get to know it. Because something really valuable that I find in songwriting is being able to say a ton of details with not a lot of words. Put yourself in like the shoes that somebody who would only know about that. I've talked about this in one of my other videos, but the best songs of all time, A Day in the Life by the Beatles, as that like he blew his mind out in a car. He didn't know that the lights had changed. A crowd of people stood and stared. Like that's only something that somebody who was like there and experienced it would say. And there's so many little details. It seems a bit like nondescript, you know, but it's so real. So for me to like write about it, it has to not seem like it's like not real, like happening anymore. That's where I find inspiration from. It's almost like I'm always kind of like looking through the rear view mirror.
You state on your website that When I Closed My Eyes was inspired by dreams, anxieties, and major crossroads in life. You say, I poured over a year of work into 12 tracks that show my full range of sound. Was it a difficult album to make, or was it just about allowing the tracks to grow organically?
A little bit of both. Actually, a lot of both. I feel like all my songs are a real amalgamation of intentional hard work and me letting those moments of like creative hullabaloo just come out. So there will be a lot of nights where I just like sit with the songs and I just like listen over and over and over again, and I'll change a plugin here and I'll write down ideas for what I want to add here. Every song averages to about a month of work, and like averages. Some songs I'll get done in less than a week. Some songs take months, like half a year. When I put an album out, that's like what I've made. I don't have like extra B-sides or here and there. If I have an extra thing, it's because I didn't finish it, and I probably uploaded it to my burner SoundCloud. What I make and what you see is what you get. And so all those hours over that year that I spent making it very much boiled down into that. Like those are the songs that I worked on. I remember like for making this album, I told myself, okay, I'll try and vlog how I make it a bit. And on my YouTube and my TikTok, there's all kinds of videos with me discussing, I did this for the day when I recorded. And just last night I was going back and I was looking at them. I was like, oh my God, this video that I posted a year ago, this is like this big part of this song on the album. Like there's nothing that I wasn't working on that didn't make it onto the album. Some people tell me like, oh, you're so prolific. I'm like, not like really. I just stay like consistent with dropping, but I give a lot of time for when I record these songs. It's almost like a baby. I've raised it from here. By the time I put it out, I'm like freaking sick of it. I've heard it a bajillion times, which kind of helps because by the time I put the album out, I already want to work on the next thing.
Do you think you're a bit of a traditionalist in the fact you still like to make albums?
I always like to think that like, oh, I'm going in my own direction, but I do consider myself an album artist. And that's just because of how complete an experience an album is. A great song is great, but when you hear a great album that has a running sound, a running theme, it's a whole experience. And so that's what I always want to go for. And I feel like, you know, a single doesn't do the type of project, I'm trying to do justice. So I've always considered myself an album artist. I love sitting down with the whole album and just listening to it from start to finish.
So did you know what you wanted to make when you started doing the album, or do you have a few rough ideas, but sort of the direction finds itself? And maybe we covered that with the last question a little bit.
When I start an album, I have a loose concept in mind. I have a few name ideas, but then again, like none of the tracks are really finished. I just have a few guitar ideas from there. So the whole album cover, album title kind of creates itself as I make the songs. I knew from the start for this one that the major theme would be dreams. I had started to have a bunch of like really weird, vivid dreams, and I normally don't remember the dreams, but a few of them, I woke up and I was like, I gotta write this down. So I knew that I was going to kind of turn that into the concept for the next album. And so as I got a few songs down in a few moments, like random creativity, write a few notes and ideas for what the album title and the cover might be, then you start to identify it. And then as you record the songs, the album idea kind of influences the songs influence the album idea. It just kind of all comes together. And I feel like I was able to, at least in my mind, communicate this dream theme like a little pretty effectively, because a lot of the songs are just based on dreams. That's what I went for this next album that I'm working on. Like, I don't have a title, but I have 6 songs that I'm recording. I have an album cover that like I'm thinking about. And so before too long, that album title will just kind of create itself, you know? It's a whole process that gets more refined as I get closer to the finish.
Favorite track from the album? Can you name one? I know you've done what all bands do and said, but it's like my children. But which one would you say, if you had to say to somebody who's got 5 minutes, you can only listen to, I've only got time to listen to one track from your album, which one should I listen to?
Oh man, I try to cater that answer to whoever asks. So if I was asking myself, I would probably say Humpback, the second track on the album. It's a little bit quieter, although it's a little bit more varied. I had probably the most fun throwing that one together. The guitar part is very like Jimi Hendrix, but if it was like just softer.
Well, that's the track I think sounds very Frank Zappa because of your vocals on it. Because you've got high vocals and the low vocals, and I think that sounds very Zappa and the Mothers of Invention.
Yeah, and I became a lot more accepting of pitched vocals on this last album because of Ween. And so I was playing around with the vocals I recorded, and I was like, I can't hear this song being good any other way if I didn't do this to the vocals. Even without the pitched vocals, like it goes in some pretty strange directions. The bass part is pretty complex just because it's like me jamming over the key the whole time. And the drums, I recorded the cymbals and the hi-hat, and like the kick and the snare and all the toms, I recorded those two separately. So the drum part is literally physically impossible to play. I knew I wanted that to be like the nicest looking music video that I would put out for this album. I put out 3 music videos, and this was the most recent one.
We'll get to the videos in the next part, but yeah.
Oh, perfect. But yeah, no, Humpback is one of those like weirder songs that kind of is in a lane of its own. And so that's, if I had to choose my favorite child, it would probably be that.
That's exactly what I was going to say, actually. I really like Better Times because I love the chilled vibe in Better Times. But yeah, Humpback kind of has a little bit of everything you've done on the album in one song.
What's funny is Better Time I was never like totally satisfied with. It took me a long time to finish the lyrics for that. And it's 7 minutes long. Having to play 7 minutes of guitar and do 7 minutes of vocals, where I was like, okay, I'm not going to get this perfect. But I feel like that kind of works in its favor. It's a very like imperfect, broken song. And that's what the songwriting is about.
I think maybe that's what I meant by chilled. Maybe it feels, not to criticize it because I really like the song, but maybe it feels a little lazy, and I kind of like that sometimes.
Yeah, and I played around with time signatures a little bit and like throwing in an extra beat here or there, but I also wanted it to feel like a natural 4/4 kind of feel, like make the songwriting flow. So it was a little weird having to figure out sticking an extra lyric here in that extra beat and then going over to the next line and it's still making sense. The songwriting for that was just like a months long exercise. So I'm very proud of the lyrics I was able to put there and how it matched the vibe and the time signature. But man, that song, that one was probably the most frustrating one to put together.
What have you learned about yourself during the making of this album?
I definitely become a much better drummer throughout this album. I've also recently picked up a music teaching job. So most of the lessons that I've given are to kids, and they're drum lessons. And so just me having that time teaching drums really has leveled up my drum game. Personally, I feel like I've learned to just give myself a lot more grace. I feel like for Rocking Horse and even I was wearing myself out. Like, we're going to finish this bass part tonight. We're going to figure out this guitar part. If it's not to your satisfaction, at least the guitar part's done. No, I learned, I don't want to say I take my time, but like if something is frustrating me, I'll move on to the next thing. And I think trust the fun in the process a little bit. All of my songs are very much, like I said, intentional hard work and me trying to get the composition right. But for this one, I was having a lot more fun with, okay, you have your dream concept, you have the tune, let's play around with it. You don't have to hit record right now. Let's just figure out the songwriting. So I was trying to be a lot nicer to myself. Now that I had like a concept, like a dream, it became a lot easier for me to be like, okay, where are you going with this? Ground yourself. Think back to the dream and the emotion you want to express. Just think about that. That was nice to have.
So you are the youngest guest I've had on the podcast so far. And as such, you seem to be embracing TikTok and growing your following pretty well on there. What's the secret for us old people? We need to know.
Honestly, I don't even totally know. It's not like I've posted. I should post more consistently. And if I was really serious about like being a TikTok artist, some people I know from school who have like really popped off on TikTok and organically grew a fan base from there. It's because they post constantly, and like every little thought that runs through your head, you got to run to TikTok and tell the fan base, because that's how you feed them. As an album artist, I always consider myself more quality over quantity. So I'll put out those like 2 to 5 minute videos about like music production. I'll try to make it educational a little bit. I'll try and offer some insights. I'll try to promote what I'm working on. And those take a lot of mental energy out of you. But like the fact that I have that good video content, I'm glad that I have like something on those platforms that shows who I am. But I'm also glad that I haven't like fully enveloped myself into being a social media artist to the point where like I'm running to the fan base with every little thing that's on my mind, because that gets you in front of the algorithm. In terms of getting like more followers, one of my videos, I paid for like $20 for the TikTok ad. And the next 3 videos that I posted were getting way more attention because of the automatic followers that came from the $120 ad. Instagram has ads. YouTube has ads. I think just like looking at, especially like with, I know we're going to talk about the music videos for a bit, but like, even if you just like put a little bit of money into the ads, after the ad is over, because of that first push, other people are going to find it. There's those little things like that. And I try not to be like, oh, I'm popping off on TikTok, because I know people who are popping off on TikTok and they hate the fact that they're popping off on TikTok because they're caught in that constantly feeding the social media thing. I'm not going to like try and be some influencer vlogger or tell you everything that's on my mind. But I also do want to give you well-meaning glimpse into the process. And so I think like through that, and I put effort into that for a few months, and it didn't pop off as much as it would have if I posted way more shitty videos. But if I posted a few good videos, it attracted a few good fans. And I'll get real DMs like, I really liked that video. I really like that song. And these are DMs that some of the people who I know with way more followers aren't getting. So I'm very much into that real engagement. That's what I'm chasing.
So you've got a good mix of live performances and music videos on YouTube. And also some of these videos, I assume you've cross-posted from TikTok to YouTube about the making of and the thoughts behind songs and things. Fever Dream was the video that hit my eye the most. It's quite weird, this video.
It is. I made that when I was 17. Oh my gosh. I just had a friend of mine go out into DC and get a bunch of footage. I took some other footage that I got from every day. I worked in a car shop at the time. So we had like a bunch of these rubber plugs that go into metal parts, and we powder coat them. So I took like a little video of those, took a close-up video of my face. I put all kinds of filters on it. I mean, it was like no budget, but I also wanted it to kind of match the song and how like it's kind of prog, it's kind of metal, but it's just kind of weird overall. Fever Dream is probably the most like experimental song I've done thus far, and it's also probably one of my best produced songs, which is weird because I made it in 2020 on GarageBand. A lot of people don't like to. I will go back and listen to my older music, especially I have an album that is no longer on streaming. That's just on SoundCloud now called A Portrait of Daisies. And that was one of the ones that I made in high school on the Apple earbud mic. And it sounds terrible. It's not like a great album, but I feel like that was such a precursor to literally every other idea that I've ever had. Like I will go back to that so much because it was so raw and real. I didn't care about anything else other than just making those songs at the time. And so that's a project of mine that I really connect with. I don't have any like mal feelings towards my older work, especially one as well produced as Fever Dream. But God, that music video was so just like thrown together. So I'm glad you liked it.
I think sometimes, though, and especially when I was younger as well, the aesthetic of what's in your mind is almost easier to produce because you don't try as hard. It becomes harder as you get older and you expect more from yourself in a way.
Yes. That's why I consider Fever Dream one of my best produced songs. It's very ornate, but I was still at that point before college. I was just full of excitement and I was like, what else can I record here? What else can I do here? That's one of those older songs that I will go back to that I'm like, this is a precursor to everything else. Like I could hear everything else that I've made in this.
The only other comment I've got written in social media here is too young for Facebook, ? Because I couldn't find a page for you on Facebook anywhere.
You might have assumed right. I'm sorry. I'm too young for Facebook. Last time I touched my Facebook, I think I was like 12 years old. My mom made me get an account. And at that time, Instagram was starting to pop off. So like, okay, I'll go on Facebook a little bit if I want to see some like family photos or something. But yeah, no, it's Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. I mean, I'm on Bandcamp. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah. Despite making all your music alone, you play live as a 4-piece. How has that been?
It's been good. That's like a recent development because I went to music school and I did have a band up in Boston. And then I moved back home here to DC. And so I kind of had to meet other musicians all over again. So I just started hitting all the open mics I could. And the music community in the DC area here is way more supportive than Boston. It was very competitive up there, because you're all young students, lots of drama. You can window shop for musicians, so nothing is very secure. But in DC, literally everybody is just trying to put each other on and just support each other and being like, hey, I'm available then. I could play for you. So it didn't take super long to stick my neck out there and find other musicians. I have my basement studio, which I'm in right now. That's my drum set. So we kind of have a rehearsal space. So we met up a few times. I showed them the songs because I played all the instruments on the album. I could just show everybody each of the parts. So that worked out. I got a couple shows booked and we kicked ass. I don't have any shows this month planned, but I'm looking into December and January. We had an absolute blast over September and October. So that is definitely something that will be happening a lot more often, especially now that like I've gotten acquainted with the open mic scene and I'm now transitioned into playing shows. I'm like now really getting my roots here into the music community here. That's what's been a part of it. And it's really cool to hear songs that you've made and what another musician has to bring to it. I love changing things up a little bit when we do it live, just based on what the other musicians have to bring to the table. I love the live performance thing. Producing and songwriting is my bread and butter, but I just have a blast when I'm on stage, especially with the band.
What are the biggest challenges of turning your album's songs into something that can be played live? Because obviously you've got a lot more layers on an album recording than you can do with 2 guitars, bass, drums, and vocals.
Yeah. The hardest thing actually is because a lot of times I'll write my guitar parts first and then write lyrics after. And so that's the biggest thing is being able to play and sing at the same time with a song. So a lot of times I'll change up the guitar part a little bit just so I can actually sing it while I play. The songs do have very ornate and like layered instruments, but a lot of times it will be doubled stuff, two guitars just playing the same part. So when I play it live, it has that like slightly emptier live feel, but it still sounds like the whole song, especially because, like I said, I don't play piano that much. So a lot of times it is bass, drums, and guitar. So there'll be one drummer, one bassist, and it'll be me and somebody else on guitar. And so when you're live with two guitars, you can actually do quite a lot. We try and make it like as ornate and as doable with what we have to work with. And when it's four people, you can make a pretty decently sized sound. It's not exactly what's being recorded. That's kind of the charm of it.
Do you have any plans to record as a band, or is this always going to be you with a band live?
I have had other musicians like hop on my stuff before occasionally, especially in Boston with my drummer friend. While we were doing our first few rehearsals, like the song that has the Tomorrow Never Knows sample closed up, just in the middle of the rehearsal, I was like, I'm working on this song. I just want to play this for you, and I want to see what you guys do on top of it. So we did. I heard that drum groove, and then a bajillion light bulbs started going off in my mind. And I was like, that's what I need from you. That's perfect. Let's finish the rest of this rehearsal. And as soon as they left, I sat down with my laptop, and I just started adding a bunch of stuff to the song. So it's not like I would want to sit down and like collab right with somebody else, because it is a very personal thing. But hearing other musicians' input is really valuable for getting the light bulbs to go off when you don't know where to take the idea next.
So you mentioned these before, but I just want to go over them again. Anyone wishing to find out more about you, you have a website, boygrapes.com, and you're on Instagram, TikTok, and Bandcamp.
Yeah.
Didn't miss anything. And YouTube, of course.
And YouTube. Boy Grapes is two easy words that people know how to spell. I hate it when somebody's like, my name is the Zactapalipidubidis. And I'm like, how do you spell that? So yeah, Boy Grapes. That's me.
Nice and easy. Okay. When I Close My Eyes by Boy Grapes is out now via Boy Boys on all streaming platforms. Sean, thank you for joining me, and good luck with the album.
Thank you. It was nice talking to you.